Markets are supposed to be arenas of rivalry. We picture many firms competing, prices falling, quality rising, and no one staying on top for long. But if you look across railroads, oil, steel, banking, telecom, software, search, retail, and cloud computing, the pattern keeps bending the same way. Competition does not just produce better products. It often produces winners strong enough to weaken the competition that made them. One firm controls so much of a market that everyone else starts reacting to it instead of disciplining it. An oligopoly is the same story with a small club instead of a single ruler. Market concentration just means more of the business is handled by fewer firms, even if the market still looks busy from the outside. Railroads, search, and cloud computing did not all end in a pure monopoly, but each shows forces that push markets toward fewer and stronger firms. The pattern starts with a feedback loop. A company wins customers, and that win gives it more revenue, more data, more bargaining power, and more room to cut prices. Those advantages make it easier to win even more customers, which strengthens the same advantages again. Success stops being just a reward for competing well and becomes fuel for making future competition harder. Start with the most basic engine, scale. Many businesses have large fixed costs before they sell even one unit, and once those costs are paid, each additional sale is relatively cheap. A steel mill, a railroad network, a semiconductor fab, or a cloud data center costs an enormous amount to build, but the owner gets cheaper average costs as volume rises. In sectors like that, being bigger is not just impressive. Being bigger is cheaper. This is why early industrial capitalism kept concentrating. Railroads needed track, land rights, terminals, and rolling stock, which made duplication expensive and often irrational. Oil refining rewarded firms that could buy crude in bulk, run giant refineries, and negotiate lower shipping rates, which helped John D. Rockefeller keep lowering costs while smaller refiners struggled. The same logic later appeared in big box retail and logistics, where a national network could squeeze suppliers, optimize inventory, and move goods at a cost local stores could not match. Scale also changes the terms of survival. If a large retailer can accept thinner margins because its costs are lower, a smaller rival cannot simply copy the price cut and hope for the best. If a giant pharmaceutical firm can spread research failures across a huge portfolio, while a small biotech lives or dies on one drug, the giant can take risks the smaller firm cannot. When fixed costs are high and marginal costs are low, the market starts favoring very large players almost by math alone. Network effects push concentration to coordination. A direct network effect means a product becomes more useful as more people use the same product. A phone network with 10 users is limited. A phone network with 10 million users is hard to leave. The same logic drives messaging apps, social networks, payment systems, and online marketplaces, where the value is not only in the software, but in the fact that everyone else is already there. Indirect network effects add another lock-in mechanism. Users attract developers, sellers, creators, advertisers, and service providers, and those complements make the platform more attractive to even more users. Think about operating systems, app stores, credit card networks, or Amazon's marketplace, where buyers want the platform with the most sellers, and sellers want the platform with the most buyers. Once that loop starts, challengers are not just competing on quality, they are competing against everyone's habit of staying where the crowd already is. That is why digital markets often look open at first and then harden quickly. Search engines improve when they process more queries and clicks, because more use generates more data about what people actually want. Social platforms become harder to replace when your friends, your audience, and your message history are all trapped in one place. The winner does not need to be perfect. It only needs to be good enough, while everyone else is still trying to solve the cold start problem of getting enough users to matter. Once a firm gets ahead, capital deepens the lead. Higher profits mean more cash for expansion, acquisitions, research, warehousing, exclusive contracts, and the ability to survive price wars that would kill weaker rivals. Investors also lend to winners on better terms, so the dominant firm often gets cheaper capital precisely because it already looks safe and powerful. In other words, money becomes cheaper for the companies that need it least, and most expensive for the companies trying to challenge them. In tech, this pattern became especially easy to watch. Venture capital often funds years of losses, so a company can grow at a speed normal profits would never allow. And once scale arrives, the goal is to convert that scale into defensible control. That can mean subsidized prices, free services paid for elsewhere, or buying potential threats before they mature into real rivals. What looks like irrational generosity in the growth phase can later turn into pricing power once enough alternatives have been weakened or absorbed. Owning infrastructure gives firms another way to consolidate power. Some firms do not just sell a product, they own the roads that other firms need to use. In the old economy, that meant rail lines, pipelines, ports, grids, and telecom networks. In the newer economy, it can mean app stores, cloud hosting, payment rails, search distribution, digital advertising exchanges, and the warehouse and delivery systems that determine whether a seller can reach customers fast enough to stay alive. Once a company controls infrastructure, it gains leverage over the rest of the market. It can charge tolls, set standards, prioritize its own services, or make rivals live with terms they had no role in writing. Sometimes this control looks mutual because it arrives through technical standards, contract language, or convenience. But if your business depends on another company's platform to be discovered, downloaded, paid, hosted, or shipped, you are not really competing on equal ground. Regulation, which many people imagine as the cure, often becomes part of the consolidation story. Large firms usually can absorb compliance costs more easily than small firms because they have legal teams, accountants, and dedicated staff for reporting and licensing. Complex rules can freeze a market in the name of safety or order, while quietly protecting the incumbents already big enough to handle the paperwork. This does not mean regulation is pointless. It means regulation can stabilize dominance if it is written around the capacities of the biggest players. Political, spending, and regulatory access then lock in the advantage. Firms with large balance sheets can fund lobbying, shape technical standards, push for favorable tax treatment, and argue for rules that sound neutral, but hit smaller competitors harder. In the late 19th century, railroad rebates and discriminatory pricing tilted whole regions of commerce. In the 20th century, regulated industries often developed cozy relationships with the agencies overseeing them. In the 21st, dominant platforms negotiate from a position of scale that lets them shape the legal environment around data, distribution, labor classification, and competition itself. None of this means large firms are fake achievements. Large firms often do lower costs, standardize quality, build infrastructure, and make life easier for millions of people. Standard Oil cut kerosene prices dramatically. Walmart built a machine for cheap distribution. Big tech platforms made communication, search, and online commerce fast and nearly frictionless. The problem is that the same efficiencies that make a giant useful can also make the giant hard to challenge. And once challenge fades, the discipline of the market fades with it. This is why monopoly pressure is best understood as a process, not a villain reveal. A market can begin with dozens of firms, then a few gain scale, then standards form around them, then suppliers and customers adapt to those standards, then the leaders buy rivals, influence rules, and turn temporary advantage into structure. By the time people notice, the old competition has not been outlawed. It has been priced out, networked out, financed out, and regulated out. The end state can look natural because the path was gradual. If you want to understand why open rivalry so often narrows into dominance, this is the sequence to watch. Free competition does not reliably sustain itself just because it exists at the start. In many sectors, competition creates winners, winners create feedback loops, and feedback loops create concentrated power that no longer behaves like open rivalry. If a society wants competitive markets, it cannot treat competition as a permanent default. It has to maintain it on purpose, because left alone, many markets do not stay arenas. They settle into empires.